American exceptionalism isn't a debate. It's not something we should be arrogant about, where we say, oh, we're very, very special, which is very, very fortunate. And when we don't recognize that, I don't think we do justice to our background and to what's expected of us. It was this nation that took all of those ideas that developed from way back in the Old Testament and Greek philosophy and Roman law and the Enlightenment. They were all really ideas until they were actually put into practice. And no one knew really whether those ideas put into practice would work. And America did. And America established this constitutional democratic government in the form of a republic. And it was the nation that from the very beginning saw that tyranny and oppression is something that was illegitimate and had to be dealt with. It was this nation that saved the world from the two great tyrannies of the 20th century, Nazism and communism. It's this country that's going to save civilization from Islamic terrorism. The United States of America has been and will continue to be a beacon of hope for the world. And the democratic debate that we have in this country and the disagreements that we have in this country should not be mistaken anywhere in the world for weakness. America's strength is just as great as it's always been. I remember on the day of September 11, thinking about that and wondering, are we up to this? Can we deal with it? Can we handle this? So much worse than anything that at least we thought had happened to us before. And from the first moment when I saw the way the people reacted to it, and I saw the way the firefighters and the police officers reacted to it, and I saw the construction workers come and volunteer, hundreds of them, more than we needed, ultimately thousands of them, I realized that these people are the sons and daughters in spirit and sometimes in blood of the same people that saved our country so many times over and over again. And when you challenge us, all this strength comes back. It's really there. We should not be worried about it. We have it. This generation is as strong as prior generations of Americans because we come from them. And we owe it to them and to ourselves to make sure that this principle of democracy and freedom is upheld, preserved, and expanded everywhere in the world. Now, America is not great, however, because of our central government. And that may be one of the basic distinctions between the two political parties right now. Because I do believe, quite honestly, that the other political party does believe that the greatness of America lies in the central government. Because they want to impose and give more and more responsibility to the central government. And I think it's a misunderstanding of what works here. We didn't take the European path toward a highly centralized government, like most of the European countries did and are doing, some of which are now moving back from that. We chose a unique option, an exceptional American option. We chose a horizontal division of power among the different branches of government, called the separation of powers, and a vertical balance of power between the central government, the national government, and the states. And it's a maybe more complex way of doing it, but it's the one that has worked for us, and it's the one that we have to go back to and rely on when we solve our problems. And we have to have faith and confidence in that system. Because, and again, without being arrogant and without being self-congratulatory, isn't it a fact that no other government, no other society has ever succeeded in accomplishing what America has accomplished. We've moved more people out of poverty than any country in the history of the world. We've given more opportunity to people. We have more fairness, not perfection, not absolute fairness. We have tremendous problems we have to overcome. But who's done better than the United States of America in overcoming problems, empowering people, creating social mobility, giving people the chance to reach for the sky and a realistic chance of getting there, and moving people out of situations in which they were treated unfairly? No one's done a better job than us. And maybe there's a reason for that. You know what the reason for it is? The reason for it is, number one, that God has graced us with this wonderful land. And number two, it's the genius of our constitutional system. Let's rely on it. Let's not reject it. Our system doesn't force every state to fit into a straitjacket. So much of the anger and division in politics today stems from the attempt of one faction, whatever the political thinking, but to impose their thinking on everyone else through the courts. I believe it's time to close that chapter in our history. I believe that we can close that chapter. And I believe we can close that chapter in our history by recognizing our history, by recognizing what the strengths are of this country. We can make the Constitution, once again, a document that unites us rather than divides us. And then we can focus the debate on the essential issues that are really challenging our nation. We can do it by reinforcing the essential principles our framers built into our democratic system. Principles of federalism, limited government, and judicial restraint. Our system recognizes the fact that different cities and different states face different challenges. They demand flexibility for local decision-making. What works in Manhattan, New York, is not necessarily what works in Manhattan, Kansas, or in Manhattan Beach, California. They may be all named Manhattan, but they have different problems, different issues. The genius of our system is we have the flexibility to allow local governments and to allow states to respond to their different challenges in a different way. We don't put a national, centralized straitjacket on them. Federalism gives us flexibility to solve our own problems. It encourages experimentation and innovation. And I believe I understand this probably better than most because it's rooted in my own executive experience. I ran a local government. Now, when I say local government, most people in New York don't think of themselves as having a local government because New York is so big. It's the 17th largest economy in the world, the third largest government in terms of numbers of employees, one of the largest budgets in the country, but still, it's a local government. And I try to learn from other local governments. I'll give you one example. Washington was still debating welfare legislation while welfare reform was being implemented in places like Wisconsin and New York. We learned the principles of welfare reform not from the central government. We learned it from Wisconsin. We borrowed it from Tommy Thompson when he was governor of Wisconsin. And then we built on them. He made them work in Wisconsin. We learned from them, and then we made them work in the biggest city in the United States with by far the biggest welfare problem. And if it could work in New York, it could work anywhere. It can. I mean, if it can work in New York, believe me, if you can move welfare in New York, you can move welfare anywhere. When we first started, there was great consternation about it, great fear, great worry that it would work. But we stuck with the basic principles of it, workfare, accountability, a job stat program, and I'll give you the end result. The end result was 640,000 people removed from the welfare rolls, which